Now, returning to that big economic story, the opposition, for their part, is heralding today's GDP figures as proof of a continued economic weakness in Australia. I spoke to the Shadow Treasurer, Ted O'Brien, a short time ago. Ted O'Brien, welcome to Afternoon Briefing.
Thanks, PK.
These ABS figures out today show over the past year growth has lifted to 2.1%. Interestingly, private investment, particularly in equipment, has been the driving force of this growth in the quarter. And that's very much tied to more spending on data centres as well. Do you welcome that development?
PK, there's a fair bit in these numbers. Firstly, I do welcome any investment in data centres because I fear that under the Albanese government, this opportunity is passing Australia by. Of course, that equipment is purchased from overseas, so it doesn't have a direct impact on GDP, but I welcome it nevertheless. Overall, though, the figures actually show that growth is almost half of what was expected, and that's not good news. And what it says is the economy really is limping its way towards Christmas. It's not a horror show, it's not a catastrophe or anything like that, but it's certainly a sign of weakness. And when coupled with inflation, which only came out a week or so ago, which means no interest rate cuts, it's not leaving much hope for households or businesses for the year ahead.
But it is growing at the fastest annual rate in more than 2 years, isn't it?
Well, that's comparing it off a very low bar, PK, if I can say so. And this is the problem. We've been calling on the government to really focus on growing the economic pie because growth really has been so slow. They were hoping that the September quarter, would come out with a growth rate of around about 0.7% was the expectation. It was 0.4%. Again, it's fallen short of the expectations, which is why it is weak. And we go towards Christmas with a far weaker economy than what the Australian people were hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point about the comparison, but it is an improvement compared to that base. So that's a good trajectory, isn't it, in terms of growth?
Against a very bad base, it's good to have something slightly higher. I don't deny that at all. But this is way below the long-run average for Australia. It's not going to get our economy back to where it needs to be, which is why it's not just about this government, which everyone knows is overspending. It's not just about them stopping the spending spree. It's also about them growing the economic pie, which is why issues of productivity, for example, are just so vitally important. Issues of energy are so vitally important. These are the things that ultimately allow the private sector in particular to grow. What you see in these figures today is there's almost half of the demand is really coming from the public sector. So government is pouring too much money into the economy. And that means that it's going to resources which are not all that productive. So, you know, real incomes, that's why they're not going up. And the more money government tips into the economy, they're really competing with households and businesses for products and services. And that means prices go up. Prices go up, inflation's high, interest rates don't come down. These are the sort of impacts you see on the ground.
So does that mean you think the case to continue energy rebates past the end of the year, you know, is over? That should end?
Oh, look, it can't go on forever. We'll, of course, wait to see what the government wants to do in that regard.
But what do you think? Are you calling for it to end?
Well, PK, what I'm really calling for is for the government to stop thinking about energy in the context of the symptom. The symptom is prices are going up, so they use taxpayer money to give back to taxpayers. So they take from taxpayers. The average taxpayer is paying an extra $5,000 in personal income tax this financial year compared to the last coalition government. So they're taking more from taxpayers. Then they're putting a little bit more in their front pocket saying, oh, that's for energy. Instead, what I'm calling on them to do is deal with the problem of energy at its source. Yeah. Labor's energy policy is failing. That's why prices have gone up by 40%. That's why smelters are having to be
I understand that's your broader argument, but there is an immediate decision to be made. Would you back an end to the energy rebates?
To be honest, PK, the immediate decision Labor needs to make is to reverse its energy policy. And I really mean that, because every day that goes by, they are making it more precarious. We are running out of energy in this country. Our businesses are closing. Insolvency rates still at a record high. We are offshoring manufacturing. Australian households, more of them are on plans because they can't pay their bills with energy retailers than we've ever seen before. Every single day, Labor wants to postpone this by saying, oh, we're dealing with rebates. Sorry, they have to deal with the problem at hand. And I'm really firm about this, PK, because households are hurting. I'm speaking to families which are making big decisions about, whether or not they can buy the presents for the kids because the cost of living is so high. Key to that is energy. It's up 40%. And the only thing Labor can think about is rebates. It's the only thing in their suite of options. Instead, they should be focusing on fixing the problem at hand. Now, if they want to bring forward rebates, we'll certainly look at it, as we always do, but I'm not going to preempt what the coalition's position would be on something that, for now, remains a hypothetical.
Okay.
We'll wait for the government.
You've been clear on what your views are on spending, arguing that government spending is too high. In that context, do you think the budget, both MyEFO and then, of course, the main piece, the May budget, should be an austerity budget?
PK, I wouldn't use that word, to be honest. My own words, I do think that the government has to start reining in its spending. There's no doubt about that.
That means cuts, though, to people's potential services, right? Like, where do you get that money that doesn't have an impact on people?
Yeah, PK, it doesn't necessarily, right? I would say three priorities here. Number one, the government needs to introduce some rules to control spending. So quantifiable fiscal rules. Jim Chalmers is the first Treasurer since Peter Costello not to have them. Secondly, it does need to look at greater efficiencies in government, how efficiencies can be improved. And thirdly, it does need to look at waste. Where there is waste, then that should be removed. Now, it's that latter point that you might be referring to, and certainly the government does have programs which demonstrates waste. And they should be doing exactly what households do, what small businesses do. You get out your budget, you go line item by line item, and you see what areas of spending are wasteful. Indeed, those should be taken out. But that's only a part of the broader equation to stop the spending spree.
I just want to talk about a couple of other issues, including the issues around AI. Are you happy with where the government landed on AI?
No, I'm not really. I think it was timid. I think it was a lost opportunity, to be candid. There's a few things in what they came out with which I'm quite pleased with. I'm happy they're looking at a national institute. I'm happy they have confirmed they will not go down the path of an AI Act. These sort of things are encouraging, and I give them credit for that. I really do. But we are talking about probably the greatest transformation of the global economy, potentially in our lifetime. Now, right now, Australia has a decision to make. Do we want to be takers of this technology or makers? Do we just want to treat it as a project to avoid risk, or do we want to take hold of this? I believe we should be far more ambitious, PK. I believe Australia has the potential to be AI leaders for Southeast Asia. I believe we need to be far more ambitious for this technology. We have everything to make this work, bar one key thing, by the way, and that is abundant, affordable energy. But because we have all the resources to make that happen, we should make it happen. Because if we don't, then we are going to be answerable to the next generation because we will see this opportunity pass us by. And this government, unfortunately, is being way too timid. They put out a nice glossy, but, the glossy was, sort of like that Christmas gift box with nothing inside. It's not going to drive the AI transformation. We should be leaders in this field and not be so timid. That's my view.
The Communications Minister has said this upcoming social media ban, it's only a week away, will protect under-16s from being sucked into purgatory online. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Again, I probably wouldn't be using the words purgatory.
Why not?
But I do, well, that's her words. I do support the ban with social media. I mean, we talked about this some years ago as a coalition. In fact, we led the debate. Ultimately, safety of children is absolutely critical. If I've got a concern, it's about the implementation. And, you know, we're now counting down the days and there are still questions not yet answered. And this is a concern because the world is watching us on this one. We have to get it right. But at this point, I have very little confidence that the government is going to get the implementation right.
So just
and
to be clear,
the last thing we need is a botched implementation.
What's botched look like, and would you withdraw your support for the social media ban?
Well, what botched looks like is people not knowing what age verification actually means. How do you use that? What botched looks like is a mum and dad dealing with a teenager and they don't know how to explain how the new rules work. What botched looks like is too many holes that can be just walked through. What botched looks like is Australia's reputation actually being diluted because we don't get this right. All of these things are at stake. And unfortunately, the Minister hasn't given us any confidence that she's over her brief, that things are ready to go. And so for us, it's a watching brief, but we're being very open about these concerns because we are concerned that what should be a very effective and a very important measure is not implemented correctly. And that puts everything at risk then. We can't lose a social compact around this, PK. This isn't an easy one. And this is why we have engaged with the government in a bipartisan way. We've got to get this right. And the problem that we potentially face is if the implementation goes wrong because there's all these unanswered questions so soon before it starts, before it goes live, then we're going to have bigger problems on our hands.
The Communications Minister, Anika Wells, has been questioned about some flights to New York, $190,000 for her and a couple of staff to go. We want to be world leaders here. Is it appropriate to go to the United Nations despite the cost?
Oh, look, of course, ministers have to do their job, but we do live in a liberal democracy, and if their expenses raise eyebrows, well, it's up to them to answer for it. And, you know, that old expression, PK, about the pub test, does it pass the pub test? Well, you know, time will tell.